Most people guess their hourly rate or base it on a competitor's, but Excel can show you exactly what you need to charge, how much billable time you need, and whether your income goal is realistic. In this video, we'll build a practical Excel pricing calculator for hourly service-based work. We'll calculate the required hourly rate, test different rate and billable time scenarios with a what-if analysis data table, and use Goal Seek to work backwards from a target result. You can download a free copy of the file from the link in the description and follow along. I'll start by showing you the finished model so you can see what we're aiming for. The green cells are inputs you can change to calculate the required hourly rate to meet your desired income goal based on your billable time. The what-if analysis data table gives you a reference grid of the hourly rate you need to charge to meet your goals, depending on hours worked per week and percentage of billable time. On the scenario analysis sheet, we're going to use the Goal Seek tool to reverse engineer calculations based on different constraints. Let's plug in some numbers, starting with the target net annual income. This is the money you have left after paying tax, business expenses, and putting some away for retirement. Then we have annual business expenses. This is software, professional fees, insurance, the usual. And then we're going to allow 30% for the tax and retirement reserve. To calculate the total revenue required, I'm going to take the net annual income plus the business expenses divided by 1 minus the tax and retirement reserve. This is going to gross up the revenue I need to bring in, which equates to just over $104,000. Next, we need to calculate our billable time. Let's say we have 46 working weeks per year. That's 52 less 4 for holidays or vacation, and 2 for sick leave and any other time off. We're going to work 40 hours per week, but only some of that time is billable. You'll have to work out what's reasonable for you, but a good rule of thumb is approximately 60% is billable. The rest is spent on admin, marketing, training, etc. And now we calculate the billable hours per year, taking the working weeks times the hours worked times the percentage billable. And we get 1,104 hours of billable time per year. Now we can also convert this into a weekly amount by taking the hours divided by the working weeks per year, and we get 24 hours per week. Now we're ready to calculate our hourly rate required to meet the above goals, and it's simply the total revenue required divided by the billable hours per year. But I'm going to calculate it by taking the working weeks multiplied by the working hours multiplied by the billable percentage, because this is going to help me later. And we get 94.46. But this number is only as useful as the assumptions behind it. For example, I might think I can work 46 weeks a year, 40 hours a week, with 60% of my time billable. But what happens if my billable time drops to 50%? Or I can only work 35 hours a week? Or what if I become more efficient and can get my billable time up to 70%? That's a question we can answer with Goal Seek. But before we jump into that, let's step back and look at the bigger picture. The required hourly rate is heavily influenced by two assumptions: how many hours we work per week and how much of that time is actually billable. And this is where a what-if analysis data table is perfect. Data tables let us compare a whole range of possible scenarios side by side so we can see the pattern instead of focusing on just one result. In this example, I want to see how the hourly rate changes based on two key variables: the number of hours worked per week and the percentage of time that's billable. So across the top, I'm going to enter the different billable percentages. We'll just go up in 5% increments as far as 75%. And down the side, we're going to enter different weekly hours, again going up in 5-hour increments to a maximum of 50. That would be pushing it, but let's see what the results are. Now at the junction, I need to reference my required hourly rate cell. Now this cell must contain a formula, and you can only use variables in the row and column labels that reference this formula. Hence why earlier when I wrote this formula, I referenced the working weeks, hours worked per week, and the percentage of time that's billable, because this gives me more options in my data table. Okay, to insert the data table, select all the cells including the header, and then on the Data tab, What If Analysis, Data Table. Now the row input cell matches the row labels I have up here. So that's my percentage of time that's billable. And the column input cell matches my column labels here. So that's hours worked per week. Click OK, and in order to make it easier to read, let's go to the Home tab and we'll add a conditional formatting color scale in this green-white theme. The table shows how sensitive the hourly rate is to two assumptions that are often underestimated: how many hours you can realistically work each week, and how much of that time you can actually bill to clients. And this is useful because it gives us a big picture view of the trade-offs. For example, if I only want to work 30 hours a week, I can quickly see how much I need to charge at different billable percentages. Or if I know the market won't support a rate above a certain amount, say $108, I can see which combinations of hours and billable time make the income goal realistic. Tools like data tables and GoalSeek are a great example of why Excel is much more powerful than most people realize. If you want to build the kind of Excel skills that help you work faster, solve problems, and create more useful spreadsheets, then check out my Excel Expert course. It covers advanced formulas, pivot tables, data validation, conditional formatting, charts, the practical techniques that help you build better workbooks. I'll include a link in the description and pinned comment so you can take a look. Okay, now we've seen the big picture, we can use GoalSeek for a different kind of question. Instead of comparing many scenarios, we can ask Excel to work backwards and find the exact input needed to hit a specific target. Let's say the market won't support the hourly rate our calculator says we need. Maybe similar service providers are charging around $75 an hour, or maybe a client has a fixed budget and that's the highest rate they'll accept. So if I can only charge $75 an hour, what billable percentage do I need to earn $65,000? In other words, how much of my working time needs to be charged to clients for this income target to still work? This is the perfect GoalSeek question because we already know the result we want. That's the required hourly rate needs to come down to $75. So with that cell selected on the Data tab, What If Analysis, GoalSeek, the set cell's already selected. That's my hourly rate. I want to change it to $75 by changing the percentage of time that's billable. Click OK, and Excel works backwards to find the billable percentage needed to make the hourly rate equal to $75. And you can see we need to increase our percentage of time that's billable to 75.6%. So if I want to earn $65,000 and only charge $75 per hour, I need to bill clients for just over 3/4 of my working time, which is 40 hours a week, 46 weeks per year. That might be realistic for some businesses, but for others, 75.6% billable time could be a stretch. So let's try a different variable. Again, I'll select my required hourly rate as my set cell, and that just populates it in the GoalSeek dialog box. We're setting it to a value of 75 by changing the working weeks per year. Click OK, and this gives us 58 working weeks, which is obviously not possible because there's only 52 weeks in a year. And even 52 working weeks wouldn't be realistic because that leaves no time for holidays, sick leave, public holidays, etc. So this tells us that at $75 per hour, we can't solve the problem by simply working more weeks. Instead, let's test another variable, again GoalSeek, to value 75, and this time let's change the working hours per week. And that gives us 50 hours per week. That's at least possible, unlike 58 working weeks, but it may not be sustainable. So we've tested 3 different variables: increasing billable time, working more weeks, and working more hours per week. But each one has a practical limit. So the final question is probably the most useful reality check. If the hourly rate is capped at 75, what income is actually realistic? Again, what if analysis, GoalSeek, to value 75 by changing our target net annual income. And that gives us a realistic target net annual income of $49,960. And this is where GoalSeek is really useful at showing when the original goal may not be realistic under the current constraints. In this case, the hourly rate is capped at 75, and we keep the working weeks, hours per week, and billable percentage at realistic levels, then $65,000 net income isn't supported by the model. So from here we have a few options. We increase the hourly rate, increase the billable percentage, work more hours, reduce expenses, lower the income target, or just rethink the service offer so it's not purely tied to hourly billing. And that's the value of this type of calculator. It turns guesswork into a decision model so you can see which numbers are flexible, which ones have practical limits, and which targets need adjusting. Now, if you want to build Excel files that are easier to update, format, and expand over time, watch my video on Excel tables next. It's one of the most useful Excel skills for building calculators, reports, dashboards, and models that don't fall apart the moment your data changes. I'll put the link on screen here now and in the description below.